party. Now, among the former Obama supporters who say they became disenchanted with the president over the past 3.5 years. Listen to him last night.
Maybe we should have known that night in Denver that things that began with styrofoam, Greek columns, and artificial smoke typically don't end well. Maybe the Hollywood stars and the glamour blinded us a little. You thought it was the glare. Some of us thought it was a halo. But in all seriousness, do you know why so many of us believe? We led with our hearts and our dreams that we could be more inclusive than America had ever been. And no candidate had ever spoken so beautifully. The dreams meet daybreak. The jobless know what I mean. So are the families who wonder how this administration could wreck a recovery for 3 years and counting. So many of those high-flown words have faded. Remember, my friends, the president's saying of negative politics and untrue ads, not this time? Who knew not this time just meant not unless the economy is stuck and we can't run on our record? Remember when the president said of his own election, this was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal. Who knew the plain English version of it was, middle America, get ready to shell out $60 to fill up your car. And in terms of their crown jewel legislative achievement, who knew that when asked, could government conceivably impose a federal mandate requiring middle-class Americans to buy health insurance, whether they could afford it or not, that the Obama answer would be, yes, we can. So this time, in the name of 23 million of our children and parents and brothers and sisters who are officially unemployed, underemployed, or who have stopped looking for work, let's put the poetry aside. Let's suspend the hype. Let's come down to earth and start creating jobs again.
Here to discuss his change of heart, that man, former Alabama Congressman Artur Davis. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Megan, thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Well, you certainly had a change of heart. Was there one thing that did it?
You know, I tell people that there was no point on the road to Damascus. There was no one epiphany moment. It became clear to me, though, in 2010 and 2011 and the beginning of 2012 that the Democratic Party is no longer the big tent party that the mainstream media want you to think it is. The Democratic Party is now a left-dominated party that's intolerant of centrist viewpoints, much less conservative viewpoints, and it is now a party that believes in one dominant enterprise, that government ought to be the dominant thing in American civil society.
Have you heard it all from the president on your switch?
I have not, and then let's put this in perspective. Last time I talked to the president, I think it was when he was trying to round up votes on health care. You and I have had in the last minute, probably about 2-minute conversation. That's about the normal conversation I would have had with the president, even when I would have had occasion to talk to him several years ago, and there weren't that many of those. I never knew the president that well.
But there's been serious pushback on you. I mean, it's been enormous, the pushback on you. Just reading up on your remarks and the response, 14 members of the Congressional Black Caucus sent you an open letter expressing their disdain for your recent comments about important issues and your total distortion, in their word, of President Obama's record, accusing you of a complete flip-flop on certain core principles. Why would they do that? Why do they care if you've had all those flip-flops and shifts?
I think you've got 3 sets of reasons. Some of the people who signed that letter were trying to get their name in the papers. That's a big deal for a few of them. Some people had old personal axes to grind. Some of them, though, were sincerely motivated. There are some in the African-American community who feel such an intense loyalty toward the president. It's completely understandable that loyalty verges into intolerance of people who may think differently or who may regard the president's record more negatively. And a special kind of venom and fury toward African-Americans don't share that. Well, tonight, Condi Rice is going to be the first speaker at 10 o'clock, first speaker in network prime time. Condi Rice is the most successful African-American woman in the history of this country. She's going to take that stage tonight to talk about the Obama
More than Oprah?
More than Oprah, absolutely. And she is going to take the stage tonight to make the case that Mitt Romney is a better steward of American interests around the world. She's an African-American.
And you think that that poses a particular problem with this group of Congressional Black Caucus members? I mean, because they seem very agitated. You responded to them, and then, but what their point was, and this is a quote, that your objections, your statements, and I quote, stem from transparent opportunism and a personal determination to overcome failing to win the Alabama Democratic primary for governor in 2010. They basically say the Democratic Party rejected you, and that's why you switched over.
My grandmother is deceased now, but she always told me never lower yourself to the level of other people. Never going to fight with people who operate from a lower place than you are. Ultimately, if people call you names or people resort to name-calling, that means they're not articulate enough to make a broader point. Some of these folks are just mad at me personally. I accept that. Again, some of these folks are just so enthusiastic about the president that they genuinely can't see that someone might be in a different place.
I want to talk to you about why you believe in Mitt Romney, and we're going to do that right after this break. Stand by. Former Alabama Congressman Artur Davis joins me now. He was a Democrat. Now he's a Republican. But, Congressman, in the wake of you turning Republican, you've gotten a lot of blowback, including from Mo Alithi, who comes on Fox News from time to time. He's a Democratic consultant. And he said, quote, I think this was to Politico, it was just a few months ago he called me, you called him, to talk about running as a Democrat in Virginia. He says you really are a secret Democrat, and you are just playing the role of Republican to get speaking gigs. I don't know what the theory is.
Sounds like Mo Alithi's trying to get his name in the paper. Mo Alithi's a Democratic consultant in Virginia. I was a Democrat in 2011. I called him in 2011, August or September, and asked him what he thought about Virginia politics, as I called a number of other people, including Republican friends of mine like Tom Davis. Mo Alithi, I give him credit for candor. He told me that the Virginia Democratic Party was not a party that would be remotely sympathetic to my political views or beliefs, and he told me that I would be way too conservative as a Virginia Democrat, and I think that was a candid assessment.
You know,
it was part of an evolving sense that I had that the Democratic Party that exists today in Virginia and around the country is essentially a liberal enterprise. Well, I've always been a conservative Democrat and was attacked for being a conservative Democrat the whole time I was in Congress, so this is nothing new.
I need a quick answer on this, but is there something about Mitt Romney that has made you come here today, or is it just simply you've got a Republican team jersey on now?
I think Mitt Romney is going to be a very good president of this country. He is someone who has a proven history of succeeding in everything he's done, and he happens to be the most experienced executive to be nominated for the presidency since Dwight Eisenhower, who had run the Allied war effort and had run a college. That notion that someone who has a history of running things might actually be well poised to run a country, it's an exotic notion to some on the left, but a lot of people here understand it.
Congressman, thank you. There's a long history of having folks who have switched parties come and speak. It was Zell Miller a few years ago, and we'll see whether Charlie Crist shows up at the Democratic convention.
If there are cameras there, I'm sure he will be.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you. Well, some details are just leaking out from a new book by a